Hi everyone, this is YMP TV, and as you know, we've been doing those series of podcasts interviewing mining executives just to know a bit more about what's happening during this period of COVID-19 and confinement. And today we have Tara Christie, the CEO of Banyan Gold. Hi Tara, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you very much.
So we've been talking a lot about COVID-19. Everyone has been in this period of confinement and so on, but how has it impacted Banyan Gold, and was mining considered an essential service in the Yukon?
So Banyan Gold, we were actually pretty well positioned for this to hit. We work pretty remotely regularly. We have an office, but most of our team actually works from home most of the time. So that part hasn't had a huge impact on us. The Yukon's also been a great jurisdiction from being able to control COVID-19 from entering the territory. There's only been 11 cases that have been confirmed in the Yukon. They've all resolved themselves. There were no hospitalizations and no deaths. So, it's a jurisdiction which has actually managed to be pretty successful in that regard. Mining is an essential service, so we are planning to do exploration this year. We're taking all the precautions and making sure that we're protecting our employees and their safety, but as well the Yukon communities in particular, and in particular First Nation communities, because that's an important part of doing our part. But we think that we'll be able to start our program up here in early June and start drilling.
And speaking of exploration, do you think COVID-19 will have an impact on the exploration financing for junior mining companies?
I think it's going to have both positive and negative effects. For those of us in the mining business, I think they're in the gold mining business, I think there'll be funds available for good companies with solid projects that are able to go out and do exploration. Some of the metals aren't doing quite as well, but I have heard that there are companies that are financing, and so I think those that don't have money right now and are out looking for money may experience some challenges, but I know there's been people inquiring about financing. So we've seen a few companies successfully do raises and even upsize their raises.
And speaking of gold, like we've seen since the beginning of this crisis, a lot of like monetary policies and fiscal policies taken by government. So do you think it will have an impact on gold, like whether it's the demand for gold and the gold prices?
Yeah, I've been a believer in gold for a long time, and I certainly didn't want something like this pandemic and all the monetary policies and the restrictions to happen to see the price of gold go up. But I think that gold was on a trajectory to go up anyway, and this is going to certainly accelerate that. The countries around the world have been printing money. Gold is a store of wealth. So I'm a strong believer that we're only just seeing the start of the upswing in gold, and a lot of the investing community has shied away from gold. And I think now where we're seeing that so many of these stocks, which everybody thought were so stable, actually are not and have had, some pretty serious declines. People will be looking for things that are going to be a store of wealth and are stable and will see value creation. So I think it's going to change people's investing habits, and certainly the people are doing research. We've seen increased numbers of inquiries about Banyan Gold, and I'm also on the board of a few other companies, and they've also had people inquiring and seeing. One of them's in the process of doing a financing right now that's been upsized and oversubscribed. So I think that's a sign that the general public is starting to take a look at mining and something that they haven't previously understood.
And I thought it would be interesting to ask you about Yukon. So because you're located, like the company is based in Yukon. So can you tell us a bit more about how mining exploration is being done in the Yukon, like whether it's like the jurisdiction, the infrastructure, and I know you guys are close to Victoria Gold. So can you tell us a bit more about it?
So Yukon actually has fabulous infrastructure. I've worked all across Canada's north and in Alaska, and I've spent most of my career working in the Yukon, and it's certainly a jurisdiction that I know and love. We have great roads and highways. We've got a stable and predictable regulatory regime, which is important. The industry's done a good job of showcasing modern exploration and reclamation. So there is a social acceptability for mining and exploration. We're right near Victoria Gold, and they certainly have been leading the pack with, building the heap leach mine and continuing their operations right through this time period with COVID, and adapting their operations and communicating with communities, and that will help all of us because they're showing that it can be done in the COVID environment. But it also shows that in the modern day, you can go from exploration through feasibility, permit a mine, and then build it. And there's a lot of jurisdictions where in one of those steps, a project gets stalled. So seeing Victoria Gold go successfully through all the phases and become a cash flowing open pit heap leach mine is good for all mining and exploration companies in the Yukon. And particularly for us, because we're right nearby. They're one of our biggest shareholders. We're quite lucky because most of our exploration crew are Yukoners. We've got deep roots in the Yukon, which lets us, certainly reduces our cost for exploration. Our project that we're working on, that we're going to start drilling on, the Oryx McQuestion, it has a main highway that goes right through it and is right adjacent to where we're drilling, and existing roads. We even have cell phone coverage right from the drill. It's the first project I've ever worked on where I could actually get email, which is a good and a bad thing, at the drill. But so we're really blessed for infrastructure, and certainly are excited about getting drilling again here.
So you said Victoria Gold adapted a bit their kind of way of operating during this COVID-19, and I guess my question will be a bit speculative, but do you think the mining companies or the mining industry will operate differently in a post-COVID world?
I think it will. A few of the observations is that there's been a lot more Yukoners who've applied for work, and the percentage of Yukoners, like local workforce, has gone up significantly, and that's partly because of a recruitment and more people to apply because they didn't have other jobs as other sectors laid people off, but also people with skills that almost meet the job qualifications. The mining industry's taken in some of those and trained them, rather than finding somebody with all the skills and flying them in from outside. I think the cost of air travel could go up pretty significantly given how hard all of our airline industries have been hit. So that trend towards hiring local and people living closer to where they're working might change. And we will see operational changes on site with social distancing and higher cleanliness standards and just more general awareness of that. I think it's so important, the relationships that we've all built with communities, and that's one of the things that I'm most concerned about, is losing touch with the communities and First Nations, and we'll have to make sure that we find ways to continue to build those relationships while not necessarily going into the communities.
And so this week I'm interviewing women in the mining sector, and I thought it would be interesting just to hear, I guess, a bit of your story and your experience as a woman executive, like a CEO in a mining company.
So I've spent most of my career in the mining industry, and actually even my childhood. My dad's a PhD geologist, so I grew up out doing exploration with him. And I when I went to university, I thought I was going to be a doctor, and so I went there. And then in first year of university, I discovered that I was actually really good at this geology thing, and it was really kind of fun, and engineering. And so I went through geological engineering. I got both my bachelor's and my master's. And during that time, I was running and after my master's, I was running my family's placer mining, large-scale alluvial mining operation, which gave me the basics in running a business and being the CEO of that business and managing fairly large budgets because we were a very large alluvial mining operation. And at the same time, I did a wealth of consulting work with First Nations, did lots of permitting, and sat on the environmental assessment board. And so I got a really broad background through those skills. And then when I was able to take over as CEO of Banyan in 2016, I really felt like I had the whole range of skills and understanding of what it takes to run a company. I find it's a great business for a woman. I've certainly managed to make it's a good lifestyle for my husband's also in the business, so we understand what each other does. We raise a family. I love the travel part. That might change now, certainly with the COVID restriction. We probably won't be doing the same amount of marketing as we used to do, but I find it's a great business for a woman. There are quite a few women CEOs, and they're usually pretty amenable to being helpful to each other, and the camaraderie is really something that I enjoy.
And as a mining executive, do you have any advice you would give to young professional, I guess, like starting their career in this period of, like, I guess, crisis, and also to those wanting to join or thinking about joining the industry?
Well, I think it's a really great industry because there's so much that you can do. And you can change your career once you get the basic skill sets. And I'd encourage everybody to get some time in the field and really understand those aspects in the field, even if you don't want your long-term career to be in the field. It gives you that basis of understanding the processes and what happens. You know, if you're going to do permitting and you want to do that long-term in the mining industry, well, you know, you need to get out there and see what it's really like so you understand what it is you're writing about. Same with the geology part of it. You need enough to understand when you're the CEO, when it's worth investing more money into a project, or when you should say, you know, no, this isn't something that we should pursue. Those are important decisions that the CEOs have to make. And you don't get that if you haven't been in the field and been able to sort of understand how the whole process works. You know, for women in this business, because there's so much flexibility and different jobs that you can do and change, like there's interchangeability between careers. You know, if I wasn't doing this, there's a multitude of other things that I would be able to do. It's enabled me to raise a family. You know, I have a 6-year-old, so I'm a working mom, and it's been a good career for that. And certainly the mining industry has been very supportive of me, my colleagues during the time when I had my daughter and when she was young. And I did continue to work through that. So I really appreciated the support from my colleagues to make that work for everybody.
That's very good. And Tara, do you have any last piece of advice for investors out there?
Well, you know, I've been a gold bug a long time, but I'm a believer now in gold, and you know, certainly you need to do your due diligence. Make sure you look at companies. Who's the management is a key thing. How credible are they? Where are their projects? Is it a safe jurisdiction? Is it a jurisdiction where a project could get permitted? You know, I am concerned with all the debt that some of the countries, the smaller countries, are accumulating, and there might be pressures for additional taxes and other bad things to happen to projects in countries with less stable government. So I think that's a really important thing to do. So investors really should do their own research and make sure that they're up to speed to it. I'm a big supporter of Banyan's, I think, in a great position. We're just about to release a maiden resource in this quarter on our Oryx McQuestion property. We acquired this property or optioned it in 2017, and in just 2 short years, we're already ready to put out a maiden resource, and I'm pretty excited about it, and lots of targets. So I encourage people to look at that. But the Yukon's a great jurisdiction. Things like Victoria Gold coming online. You know, there's stories in the whole range from early exploration, which is higher risk, and you know, to that new producers, and then of course some of the majors have done very well recently as well.
Well, thank you so much, Tara, for your time. Like we really appreciate, and I wish you good luck with the project and also to stay safe out there.
Thank you. We will plan to stay safe. Thanks for your time.